Hi everybody, I'm just sharing this here to sing praises and to express my heartfelt appreciation and gratitude to Michael of Benicia and the PUB, the People's Union of Britain, for all their dedicated hard work and efforts in getting this case of prosecution, private prosecution case together to be delivered, that has now been delivered to the courts as of the 19th of the 3rd 2021, issuing a case of fraud against Matt Hancock, Patrick Balance, Neil Ferguson and Chris Whitty, Chief Medical Officer, and citing all the facts and evidence of pandemic fraud that has been perpetrated against the British people and is now being used to justify, things like vaccine passports and mass vaccination of the public with an experimental, unlicensed vaccine that has not been approved and that is actually only authorised for emergency use according to the alleged pandemic, which the PUB thoroughly challenge. That does COVID-19 really warrant the use of an emergency authorisation for an emergency use vaccine? And they've put in a lot of work. They've suffered a huge attack, especially Michael here has suffered major attack, slanders online, they're all listed here. I'll leave the link to this under the video. There's some very disturbing stuff going on in the world, the president of Tanzania, MAGUFULI, has recently died allegedly of a heart attack in hospital after disappearing for a couple of weeks. He later turns up in hospital on a ventilator. People were saying initially that he died of COVID, but actually it transpires that he died of a heart attack. And this is just a month after The Guardian here, which this global development section is funded by the Gates Foundation. That's a fact. I'll dig the link up and leave it for you under this, so understand The Guardian is receiving money from the Bill Gates Foundation. This article was written, this article is supported by Global Development, which is like I say, Bill Gates, and they're saying it's time for Africa to rein in Tanzania's anti-vaxxer president. Okay, and then here we are, he's now dead, and it's like we're just supposed to accept that he just died of a heart attack, age 61, in really good health. He wasn't overweight, he wasn't an alcoholic or anything. And yes, people do suddenly die of heart attacks, but we anybody who entertains lawful suspicion that a month after the corporate media is calling for him, it's time to rein him in, that suddenly a month later he's dead. And don't forget, this is a guy who even refused a huge bribe, tens of millions bribery from the Gates Foundation to roll out the experimental vaccine. Now, I'm not saying anything about the vaccines in terms of whether they be right and wrong, apart from my own personal feeling that they are, people need informed consent. That is what I stand by, informed consent. And, these are the people in Tanzania on New Year's Day 2021. And they're all celebrating, they're happy. This is a nation where they've spent, by 2021, they've had a year under a president that has refused to roll out lockdowns, has refused to insist on social distancing or any of the things other than washing your hands, staying clean, okay, no masks. Well, you'd have thought that the whole country by now would have booted him out of office, because they would have been losing so many family members and relatives and friends to COVID-19 because he's had nothing in place to protect the people. Don't forget, Britain is a nation where, you know, the whole UK press, The Guardian, for example, were going crazy about Boris Johnson saying he'd murdered people because he hadn't locked down soon enough. Okay? But here we are in Tanzania, a year later, after there's been no lockdowns and nothing, you know, after the guy kicked the World Health Organization out of his country after a pawpaw fruit and various other non-human test items all came up COVID positive. And he said, well, I'm not using this on my people because, you know, if this is the level of testing in which a pawpaw fruit comes back COVID positive, then basically the whole of his country will be judged COVID carriers. He will have been expected to, to judge every one of them a COVID carrier when he knows that random fruits and animals also come back positive from these tests. So he said, no, he isn't playing this game. And, you know, a year later, The Guardian are there saying, oh, it's time to rein him in. He's anti-vaxxer. But if you read this, he does actually state, you know, that he's not anti-vaccine for all the vaccines. He said we should be careful. The Ministry of Health should be careful. They are not hurried to try these vaccines without doing research. Not every vaccine is important to us. We should be careful. We should not be used as guinea pigs. Right? That was MAGUFULI. Is that anti-vaxxer? Is he saying, we don't want vaccines, take them away, we totally refuse vaccines? No, he says not every vaccine is important to us. This is balance, okay? This is balance, and balance is not being allowed in our media right now. We're not getting any balance. We're being presented with black and white that deny the full colours of the rainbow of life. Because life is not black and white, and the narratives are not black and white. Not everybody questioning an experimental, unlicensed, non-approved vaccine is an anti-vaxxer. There's a middle ground here, the middle ground where the rainbow shines, where there is no extremism. Because that's why the colours can shine through. Because there's no black saying there's no such thing as white. And there's no white saying there's no such thing as black. And that's where sanity resides, under that rainbow. On the middle line between insanity and total fiction. Insanity and fantasy, reality, is what we need to hold on to. And reality is what this case is based on, this private prosecution that they have been working on. Michael here. Why? Because he's a true father. You know, give praise and thanks that there are true fathers in Britain who do care about their children. True mothers who do care about their children's future. We do care about our ancestors. We do care about our history, where we've come from, where we've been, where we are, where we would like to be. That question the rights of Bill Gates to come into Britain, visiting our MP in Parliament, sitting on the BBC, treated like a god, flogging his latest corporate concoction, talking about, you know, killing off half the animals of Earth to save the planet, including us, with his mad schemes of dimming the sun with chalk, basically. I mean, these are things the guy's talking about, and people are taking him seriously because he's got money. And it seems when in this world today, everybody is equivalent of a whore. That if you shove some money at them, they'll swallow any amount of lives, they'll bend over backwards, they'll put people at risk. They don't care as long as you're giving them the money. Or else, you know their own criminal secrets. But, you know, Michael of Benicia here and everybody at the PUB, they deserve our respect, and the people of Britain need to be aware that this is happening. This is for real. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not QAnon nonsense where, you know, they're going on for years about sealed indictments and how Hillary Clinton's going to be arrested next week. We're talking about real people with real solid facts and evidence bringing real legal case of fraud against members of this government. They're the lies that they've been telling us and building their narratives on. So, you know, I have just written a letter of complaint here to the BBC. And I've titled it, BBC Bias and Abuse of Public Trust / Misconduct. Why has the BBC failed to cover news on the private criminal prosecution recently presented in UK courts on issue of fraud charges laid against Matt Hancock, Whitty, Vallance and Ferguson as submitted from 25th of the 3rd, 2021. And for that I've used the postal date here as is written. That was the date it was posted. Okay, the final evidence. And I've left a link there to the article that I've just shown you. An article, by the way, this article is not allowed on Facebook. It's banned from Facebook. Okay, anybody armed with facts and evidence, standing up for British people's rights, human rights, for our common law and democracy, you know, we're a danger to public health, apparently. Michael of Benicia, he's a danger to public health. The same as the president of Tanzania. He needed reining in. Reining in, it seems, to a ventilator in a hospital bed where he dies. I here juxtapose BBC ignorance of UK citizens and the PUB with your coverage of Dolly Parton, a USA singer who took part in an advertisement promoting experimental corporate pharmaceuticals as featured on BBC News. Why is a vaccine jingle from a singer considered more newsworthy than the dedicated hard work and legal efforts of informed and deeply concerned UK citizens? Furthermore, are we the public seriously expected to believe that Miss Parton, as a woman who clearly spends millions on her physical body and face, casually subjected herself to an experimental vaccine live on air in full knowledge that all parties involved in that vaccine are non-liable, and at most she might receive a measly $150,000 from UK government should she suffer severe injury as a result? Did Miss Parton genuinely receive that vaccine, or was it a placebo as part of a paid-for advertisement? Has the BBC failed to cover the news on the case brought against Hancock and others because the PUB have not paid advertising fees? Since when did UK BBC News become an agent for corporate advertisements? Why have UK BBC licence payers been denied news of illegal action delivered on their behalf and in defence of their legal and democratic rights? How much money exactly has the BBC received from the Gates Foundation? How do those payments not compromise the BBC's alleged commitment to present unbiased news? The BBC had no problems covering Boris Johnson's total pack of lies about Brexit on grounds of fair coverage of the issue. Unlike Johnson PM and Co, the PUB have established their case on foundation of solid, indisputable facts and evidence, and yet there is no room for those on BBC News. And that is going to be sent today. And I strongly advise everybody to do the same, because it's not enough just to be complaining about what BBC's showing on their news. We also need to be complaining about what they are not covering on their news. That itself is evidence of their ignorance and their lack of commitment to being an unbiased news reporter. And the issue of Brexit is a fine point, you know, and like I say, some people supported Brexit, some people didn't. Yes, everybody had a right to all the facts, but it came down to packs of lies being told. When it comes down to outright lies being told, the BBC were quite happy to give air and a news platform to those lies, regardless of which side they were on, in the interest of fair coverage. But they are not prepared to give the same non-biased approach in presenting material that is not based on lies, that is based on foundation of solid facts and evidence, enough that it's made it into the courts. Charges of fraud for the lies that have been told. And the BBC can't cover that. They can't cover Michael of Benicia here, who courageously and tirelessly has worked on behalf of British people. You know, read through this document, saving people's homes, challenging the Rothschilds' banks, standing up for people's law and rights, all the people that he's working with now, who have helped bring this case and fund it, the people who are supporting him, yet he's not allowed on Facebook. BBC News won't cover him. You won't see him in the Gates-funded Guardian. And you think you know what is going on? You think you know enough to judge people who are asking questions as COVID-idiots and they're all QAnon Trump supporters? Well, I don't support Trump. Go through any of my videos. It's very clear I don't support Trump, and I'm certainly not part of QAnon. I'm a British citizen, and I think it's about time that we dumped politics for the lie and fakehood that they are and have been all along. Because at the end of the day, we have no Labour Party anymore in Britain, do we? We have no Tory Party. What we have is a criminal cabal on both sides who've usurped our democracy and our rights and our legal system, and are right now trying to impose a corporate dictatorship upon us all on the strength of what? Michael of Benicia and the PUB and the facts and evidence, the truth that the President of Tanzania, Magufuli, understands about the fraudulent details that are being, paraded before us. We're talking about medical xenophobia here, coming from London Imperial College, for goodness sake. Fraudulent tests. Vaccines produced on the results of fraudulent tests and then being rolled out on the public. Not, and we're talking about, can you even call them vaccines? We're talking about a new technology. And as I say, that is up to people. If you want to have that, that is fine. Right? If you choose to have that vaccine, that's your choice. Are you informed? Are you informed? And if you're not informed with the full facts, the facts that are being presented in this court case, if you're not informed about these facts, why aren't you informed? Why aren't you informed? Is it because the BBC has failed to do its job? Is it because the BBC is acting more like an advertising agency on behalf of Bill Gates? And if that is the case, then why are we paying a licence to them? Well, I've continued paying my licence fee, but depending on the outcome of this particular complaint, I will be no longer paying my licence fee. I will not watch BBC News. I will not tolerate its presence on my computer. They will be ditched from my life. And I will consider bringing a class action against them. And anybody interested in taking part in that, please do contact me, because they have put lives at risk. They have put my fellow countrymen, my friends, myself, my family at risk of illness and inflicted mental health issues on so many people, because they have been presenting biased news and they have been ignorant of facts and evidence, and that amounts to propaganda. And once you've got a whole news media that includes, you know, not just the BBC but the Guardian and so many others as well, all presenting propaganda, you know, this is when you're moving into very dangerous terrorism, very dangerous levels of what amounts to fascism and ultimately terrorism. Terrorism against the people. Terrorism by stealth is what is happening, as far as I'm concerned, and so many other people are concerned. And when it comes to the Guardian calling for him to be reined in and a month later he's dead, we have every right to express our lawful suspicion that he was murdered because he stood up against the World Health Organization. And it comes to a point where, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to give the benefit of the doubt. I'd like to see it hashed out in court, thank you. I'd like there to be a public inquiry to tell us exactly, did he really die of a heart attack? Was he killed? I'd like an investigation into whether Dolly Parton really did receive a vaccine, a COVID vaccine, live on air, or whether she received a placebo. Or what deal was done behind the scenes? Was she participating in an advertisement? Did she sing a little jingle, COVID-19 jingle there, free for the BBC on BBC News? A total abomination, a bastardisation of everything that we, the people, expect of our BBC News, our national news. That a singer from America has more credibility with the British public and the BBC than this man, Michael Benissy, who stood up and fought for our rights, fought to save our very homes. What the bloody hell has Dolly Parton ever done for this country? Or Bill Gates, for that matter. I am really seriously outraged. And everybody, you know, the penny's mightier than the sword. Get onto the website, BBC News Complaints, make a complaint. If you're paying a licence fee, ask them why they have not informed you about news about this case. Don't you at least deserve to hear the news about it? Whether or not you agree with what he's doing, whether or not you're on Bill Gates' side, or, you know, you believe that the vaccines will help you or not. Aren't you entitled to hear the news of what is going on in this country and what is being done on your behalf by informed British citizens? Legal action. You know, unless you're going to speak out, people, ignorance is bliss until the time of the rude awakening. And unfortunately, you know, as thoroughly ignorant people who have refused, when you know that the information is there, the so-called alternative news is there, and you fail to look at it. You refuse to look at it. You refuse to take it into consideration. You deserve what is coming. But the people that you're dragging down with you do not. The children of this generation deserve better than your ignorance and your cowardice and fear. Because, you know, lose the fear and live. Wake up and live, people. And ask the blooming questions. Ask the questions and give the credit where it is due. Not to Dolly Parton. How much was she paid? Not to Dolly Parton. Not to Bill Gates. But to people like this man. The hard-working, righteous, lawful, law-abiding citizens of Britain who make this country what it is, who fought for this country. Our ancestors fought for this country. We make this country what it is, a law-abiding, civilised place. And without people like Michael We've got nothing in this country. We are nothing and you are nobody. You're a number in a machine, somebody to be vaccinated and ignored if you suffer the consequences. You know, and like I say, I'm not saying anything in particular about the vaccines. I am talking about the narratives and BBC ignorance and the kind of things that is going on, you know, blatantly in our faces. And yet, you know, I'm supposed to casually accept that a woman who spends millions of dollars, obviously she does, on her face, her body, okay, that she'll just sit there and have a vaccine that's an experimental, unlicensed vaccine that isn't even approved, that she will do that live on air because she cares so much about us, we the British people, and even sing a song for us, sing a song at breakfast to have the vaccine, you know. And I am not saying you should listen to her or you should not listen to her. What I'm saying is that why is she there doing that? Why has the BBC got time to show that to the British people, but they have not got time to show us Michael of Benicia and the BUB and discuss the case of fraud being laid against government ministers in relation to the whole issue, the whole narrative of the COVID pandemic? Because, you know, when it comes to them now threatening to vaccinate our children and talking about making it mandatory for schools, entering into schools, you know, all these discussions, they do need to be up for public debate. But if we're not allowed to debate, if we're not allowed to discuss things, if, you know, anybody that starts asking questions is immediately taken down from YouTube or, you know, immediately deleted from Facebook, then there isn't going to be any debate, is there? And why? Why do people need to shut down debate? Who needs to shut democracy and human rights and law down? Who needs to do that except criminals that want to abuse us? Because if they've got a case, make your case. Let the people make their decision. Let them have all the details, all the facts, the solid, indisputable facts of evidence, and we shall make our own minds up, because we're not stupid. And if people on balance decide, well, you know, we would like to have this vaccine, but, you know, the idea of creating a vaccine passport on strength of an experimental, unlicensed, unapproved, only authorised for emergency use vaccine is absolutely ridiculous. It's got it'll have no foundation in law. Because you can't create a law on an experiment. You just can't. Okay? You can invite people to participate in an experiment of their own free will, but you are not allowed to discriminate against people who have chosen not to participate in that experiment. That is fascism. So, you know, people, you need to be thinking very, very seriously about exactly why the BBC and all our news medias, The Guardian included, have ignored Michael of Benicia and the PUB, and in fact even most of the alternative medias have veered away from it. Why? Why is he being shut down from Facebook? And why instead are we getting Dolly Parton singing her songs about the COVID vaccine? Reworks Jolene for the COVID vaccine. Okay? Why? And write and ask the BBC, why have you failed to cover this? Why have you failed to deliver unbiased news? What is your agenda? Who are you really working for, BBC? Because I believe that they are presently a lawless criminal organisation promoting and working on behalf of other criminal organisations.